Adrian Cole, billionaire heir to the Cole Group, sat behind the wheel of his black Bentley, heading back from a late-night meeting. His mind was heavy with numbers, contracts, and the silent pressure of his parents' wishes. They had been reminding him, almost daily, of his engagement to Vanessa Dane, the daughter of their oldest business partners. A union of empires, they called it. Adrian called it a prison in a diamond ring. The wipers swished across the windshield. That's when he saw her. At first, it was just a figure in the distance, a woman standing barefoot on the roadside, her long hair clinging wetly to her face and neck. She wasn't shivering, though the rain was merciless. She stood completely still, like she belonged to another world. Adrian slowed the car, curiosity tugging at him. As the Bentley rolled closer, he saw her face, pale, luminous even in the dim light, with eyes so deep they looked like they could pull him under. He lowered his window. "Are you all right?" he called out over the rain. She didn't answer immediately. She only tilted her head slightly, as if listening to something far away. Then softly she said, "Please, help me." Adrian's chest tightened. Something about her voice, calm, almost melodic, cut straight through the storm's noise. He stepped out into the rain without thinking. That was when he saw the cut on her arm, not deep, but strange, like it had been made by something sharp and unnatural. She swayed as though she might collapse. Instinct took over. He wrapped his coat around her and guided her to his car. She smelled faintly of the ocean. As he started the engine, she looked at him, really looked at him. And Adrian felt an unexplainable pull, like the ground beneath him had shifted. He didn't know then that saving her would change everything. He didn't know he was falling for someone who wasn't entirely human. By the time Adrian's car rolled through the tall iron gates of his mansion, she was already fast asleep. The storm had quieted, but her damp hair still clung to her delicate face, and her breathing was soft and steady. He turned off the engine and stepped out into the cool night air. Without a second thought, he moved to her side, opened the door, and gathered her into his arms. She was so light, as though the rain had washed away all her weight. Inside, the mansion glowed with warm golden light. He carried her up the polished staircase, each step echoing faintly, and laid her gently on the bed in the guest room. She didn't stir. He stood there for a while, watching her sleep, wondering who she was and why she had been alone in such a storm. Eventually, he left her to rest. Morning came slowly, with pale sunlight slipping between the curtains. When she opened her eyes, Adrian was already sitting in the armchair by the window, a cup of coffee in his hand. "You're awake," he said, his voice calm but curious, handing her a towel. "You're safe now," he said. "I'm Adrian." She took the towel slowly, her fingers brushing his. Her skin was cool, unnaturally cool, yet her touch sent a strange warmth through him. "Marina," she whispered. Marina, the name suited her, relief. "Who are you, and what were you doing out there in the heavy rain at that hour? How did you get hurt?" She hesitated. Something unreadable flickered across her face before she spoke. "I was relocating to the city," she said softly, "but I was attacked on the way. They took everything. I barely escaped." It was a lie, but her voice carried such fragile sadness that Adrian didn't doubt her. His chest tightened with pity. "You've been through a lot," he said gently. He cleaned her wound, his touch careful, but when he suggested taking her to the hospital, she refused almost instantly. "No hospital," she said firmly, her eyes clouding for a brief moment. He didn't press her. Instead, he drove her into the city. They bought new clothes, and he took her to a salon to have her hair washed and styled. When she stepped out, the sunlight caught her face. For a heartbeat, Adrian forgot to breathe. She was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Her eyes were endless, her smile warm, yet filled with a mystery he couldn't name. Without warning, she had stolen his heart. What he didn't know was that she was just as captivated. She had never been this close to a human before, never felt the strange, dangerous rush of being near one. And now she was standing in the middle of his world, feeling her heart beat like the waves against the shore. Adrian could not explain the pull Marina had on him. He had known her for only a short while, yet she had carved her place inside his thoughts like a song that refused to leer. She now lived in a beautiful apartment he rented for her, but he visited so often it felt like his second home. What he didn't know was that Marina's life had begun far from the world he knew. Beneath the silver-tipped waves, in a kingdom shimmering with coral palaces and gardens of pearl. She was the only daughter of the king and queen of Aquaria, heir to the throne of the merfolk. But that life had been ripped apart one moonless night. Her uncle, greedy for power, led an attack against her parents. In the chaos, her mother had pulled her aside, her eyes fierce and full of sorrow. "Run to the land of men, my child. It is the only place you will be safe." She had fastened a diamond-studded bead around Marina's waist, a magical heirloom that could shift her between human and mermaid at will. As the enemy's shadows closed in, Marina had fled. They had caught her briefly, slicing her wrist in the struggle. She had looked back only once, and in that moment saw her mother fall. On land, she had pressed the beads to her skin, felt the magic surge through her, and stepped out into the rain-soaked road, where Adrian's car had stopped in front of her. Now, weeks later, Marina had learned to live among humans. She moved with quiet grace, never going near the sea. Children adored her, neighbors greeted her warmly. But it was Adrian whose heart she had truly captured. He told himself he still had a duty. His parents wanted him to marry Vanessa, the elegant daughter of their closest family friends. But lately, Vanessa's face had faded in his mind, replaced by the memory of Marina's smile, the way she laughed like waves touching the shore. That night, the city was quiet. A soft rain tapped against Marina's windows as Adrian came to see her. She opened the door in a simple dress, her hair loose around her shoulders, her eyes brighter than the lights outside. They cooked together, laughed over little things, and sat close on the couch, watching the rain. Adrian's hand found hers almost without thought. "Marina," he said softly, his voice carrying something unsteady, "I don't know what you've been through, but I know I've never met anyone like you." She looked at him, really looked, as though memorizing the lines of his face. "And I've never been this close to a human before," she whispered, not realizing how strange her words sounded. The air between them grew warm. The rain outside was nothing compared to the storm inside the room. His gaze held hers as though asking for permission. She didn't look away. He reached up, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face, his fingertips lingering against her cheek. Her breath hitched. Slowly, he leaned in. She closed her eyes, and when their lips met, it wasn't rushed or wild. It was deep, tender, and consuming, the kind of kiss that felt like it could rewrite destinies. In that moment, Adrian knew Vanessa, the plans, the family expectations, none of it mattered anymore. There was only her, and somewhere, deep in her heart, Marina knew that this man could either be her greatest love or her greatest heartbreak. "Adrian." The sound of his father's voice hit him like thunder. It was sharp, commanding, and carried the kind of authority that had bent boardrooms and governments alike. Mr. Cole stood in the center of the living room, his hands balled into fists. "What is this nonsense I'm hearing about you and some strange woman?" His eyes were hard, scanning his son as if looking for signs of madness. "The news is already spreading. Do you know what this means for our family's name?" Adrian met his father's gaze. His heart pounded, but his voice stayed calm. "Father, she is the one I want to marry. I love her. I want to spend my life with her." The older man's face darkened instantly. "On someone you barely know." His voice rose like a whip. "You want to risk everything, our company, our oldest friendship with the Benson family, for a stranger you plucked from the street?" "I know her better than you think," Adrian replied, his jaw tightening. Mr. Cole stepped closer, pointing a trembling finger at his son. "Number what I know is that you are under some spell, Adrian, and I will not stand by while you throw away your birthright for some girl you barely understand." "Father, enough!" His voice cracked like a gunshot. "Get that foolishness out of your head. You will marry Vanessa. That is final." Through all this, Mrs. Cole sat in silence on the sofa, her hands folded, her expression unreadable. "Mum," Adrian turned to her, desperation softening his tone. "Please, speak to him. Tell him I don't love Vanessa. Tell him I've never loved her." Mrs. Cole rose slowly, her eyes searching her son's face. She didn't say much, just stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. "Everything will be fine," she murmured into his ear. But her embrace felt heavy, like she was holding back words she dared not speak in front of her husband. Meanwhile, Vanessa H. had already heard the whispers. Her friends had fed her the gossip with smirks and fake sympathy, and though she pretended it was nothing, the sting had lodged deep in her pride. That evening, she showed up at Adrian's penthouse, dressed in a silk emerald dress that clung to her curves, her makeup flawless. She carried herself like a queen, ready to reclaim her throne. But Adrian didn't smile when he opened the door. His eyes were cold. "Vanessa," he said without inviting her in, "I'm sorry, but whatever we had, it's over. I have never loved you, and you know that. Now I've found someone I truly care about." Vanessa blinked at him as if the words were foreign. "What are you saying? You're dumping me? For someone else?" Her voice cracked, but not from sadness, from disbelief and anger. "Oh, stop it, Vanessa," Adrian said, his patience gone. "Stop pretending you're the victim here. You think I don't know about your affairs? Kingsley, Victor, Greg. Do you need me to list every man? And the drugs? The parties? I know everything. I was simply waiting for the right moment to end this circus." Her perfectly painted lips trembled. You've known all along?" "Yes," he said flatly, "and now you will leave, or I will have security escort you out." For a moment, Vanessa stood frozen in the doorway, her pride and dignity battling inside her. Finally, she turned, lifting her chin to keep her tears from falling in front of him. She made it to her car before the first sob escaped. At home, she locked her bedroom door and collapsed onto her bed. The humiliation burned like acid. She hated him for knowing, but even more for not telling her until now. When her father heard the news, his fury was immediate. What? He barked over the phone to one of his business associates. Within minutes, he was on the line with Mr. Cole. "This engagement will go on as planned," Mr. Benson said, his voice low but sharp, "or we will pull out every investment, every partnership, every contract with your company. Fix this, Cole, or your empire will crumble faster than you think." Adrian's phone buzzed late in the evening. The voice on the other end was his father's, sharp, impatient, and cold. "Adrian," Mr. Cole's tone was like ice. "You have two choices. Marry Vanessa, or I will cut you off. From everything. No inheritance, no position in the company, nothing." The line went dead before Adrian could even speak. He sat there for a long moment, gripping the phone, his chest tight. Was Marina worth losing everything for? Who was she really? The question gnawed at his mind like an uninvited shadow. That night he drove to Marina's place. The rain was light, drumming softly against the windshield, but his heart pounded as if a storm was brewing inside him. She welcomed him in with her usual warmth, yet he could see a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. They sat together, the silence heavy. Adrian leaned forward. "Marina," he said quietly, "I need to know more about you. Where you came from. Who you are. All of it." The question was sudden, cutting through the air like a blade. Marina's pulse quickened. She wasn't ready to reveal the truth, that she was not of this world, that the ocean still whispered her name. She forced a small smile and told him a carefully constructed lie. "My uncle killed my parents to take over their inheritance. I had to run. There's nothing left for me back home." She didn't mention the ocean. She didn't mention the diamond beads. Adrian's jaw tightened with sympathy and anger. He reached for her hands. "Marina, no one will ever hurt you again. I swear on my life, I'll protect you. Always." Her eyes softened, and in that moment, something in him broke free, like he'd been holding back a tidal wave for too long. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, his fingertips lingering on her cheek. Their lips met, softly at first, hesitant, then with a hunger neither could resist. Time blurred. The world outside ceased to exist. He lifted her into his arms and carried her to the bed. His hands moved with intention, undressing her slowly, reverently, as though unveiling a secret. Her body glowed under the dim light, the diamond bead resting delicately around her waist. a jewel he didn't yet understand. Her breath caught as his fingertips traced her skin. Their eyes locked, desire and longing surging like an unstoppable tide. When he slid into her, the world spun into molten gold. His movements were slow at first, savoring every gasp, every shiver, then deeper, faster, until their bodies collided like waves in a raging storm. The pleasure was intense, drowning them both. When it was over, they lay tangled together, her head resting on his chest, his hand running gently through her hair. "I love you, Marina," he whispered, his voice raw. "I love you too," she breathed. At that moment, Adrian knew with bone-deep certainty it was her or no one. But elsewhere, darkness was brewing. Vanessa sat in, her penthouse rage burning through her like acid. Adrian's rejection played in her head over and over, each word slicing deeper. She would not, could not, let some stranger take her place. That night, she made a call. A voice on the other end laughed when she named her price. By morning, the plan was set. When Adrian left for his parents' house, promising Marina he'd be back soon, she kissed him goodbye. Minutes later, the door to her home burst open. 3 masked men stormed in, their footsteps thunder in the quiet space. Marina's scream was muffled by a rough hand. She struggled, kicked, fought, but they were too strong. Her eyes widened in terror as they dragged her away. Somewhere deep inside, the ocean stirred. And far away, Adrian had no idea that by the time he returned, she would be gone. "Dad," Adrian said, his jaw tight, "I only came here to tell you one thing. Marina is the only woman I love, the only one I've ever loved. I will never marry a spoiled brat and drug addict like Vanessa." Mr. Cole's face went stone cold. "Then get ready to cease being my son. I will disown you, Adrian, and cut off every cent of your inheritance." Adrian didn't flinch. "So be it." The words cut the air like a blade. His father froze, disbelief etched on his face, while his mother gasped, clutching her chest. "Adrian," she cried, "please." But he was already turning away. "You'll regret this," his father growled, but Adrian didn't look back. As Adrian stepped outside, his phone buzzed violently in his pocket. It was his assistant. "Sir, it's Marina. She's been kidnapped." The world stopped. His heart slammed against his ribs, his vision tunneled, and the only sound he could hear was the pounding of blood in his ears. "What?" he barked. Men in masks, dragged her away." "We don't know." Adrian was already moving, his mind racing. Thank God for that tracker. The tiny GPS chip he had hidden in Marina's hair the night before, out of pure instinct, was now her lifeline. He punched the coordinates into his car's dashboard and floored the accelerator, tires screaming against the asphalt. Meanwhile, Marina sat in a cold, damp warehouse, her hands bound behind her back, her lips split from the first blow. Vanessa stepped forward, her heels clicking on the cracked concrete floor, eyes blazing with venom. "So, it's you," Vanessa hissed. "The little stray who thought she could crawl into my life and take what's mine." "I've taken nothing from you," Marina's voice trembled, but she held her chin high. Vanessa laughed, sharp, ugly. "You think Adrian's love is nothing? Oh, sweetie, today you disappear." She turned to the gang members. "Teach her a lesson." The blows came fast and brutal, fists in her ribs, a kick to her side. Marina coughed, tasting iron. Her vision blurred, but she stayed conscious. Then Vanessa's eyes narrowed, catching a glint of something around Marina's waist. "What's this?" She stepped closer. The shimmer of the waistband caught the dim light, tiny diamonds glowing faintly. Marina's eyes widened in panic. "No, don't touch it." "Oh, so he bought you jewelry?" Vanessa sneered. "You think you're special?" "No, please, you don't understand." But Vanessa's anger drowned out reason. In one swift motion, she ripped the beads away. The world seemed to shudder. Marina's scream was unlike anything human, a raw, haunting sound that echoed in the rafters. Her legs dissolved into shimmering silver scales, her body twisting as her tail unfurled in a flash of aquamarine light. The thugs froze, horror etched on their faces. One dropped his weapon with a clatter. "What the hell?" "Monster!" another yelled, bolting for the exit. Within seconds, the room was empty except for Vanessa, who staggered backward, pale as death, and the barely breathing Marina, her tail curled weakly around her. Far beneath the waves, a dark power stirred. Her wicked uncle, the Sea Lord, felt the sudden surge of magic. His eyes glowed and he hissed, "So, I've found you." He sent his most ruthless minions, half human, half sea beasts, racing toward the shore. Adrian arrived, kicking the door open. The sight stole the breath from his lungs. Marina, not with legs but with a tail, her skin shimmering like moonlit water. She was bleeding, trembling, her eyes locked on him with desperate sorrow. "Adrian, I'm sorry," she whispered. "I wanted to tell you, but I was afraid." He didn't move. His mind was a whirlwind, shock, disbelief, and an aching love that burned through it all. Then the air grew colder. Heavy footsteps thudded outside. He turned and saw them. Figures with pale, dripping skin and eyes like black glass, teeth too sharp for any human mouth. They were coming for her. Without thinking, Adrian ran to Marina, scooping her into his arms. She was cold, lighter than he expected, her tail trailing behind. "Hold on to me," he growled. They bolted from the warehouse, but the creatures moved unnaturally fast, their wet feet slapping the ground as they gave chase. Adrian's lungs burned, his muscles screamed, but he didn't stop. One lunged at him, clawed fingers slashing his arm. Pain flared, but he tightened his grip on Marina and kept going. Another creature cut them off, snarling, and in a brutal clash, Adrian slammed it into the wall. But there were too many. They surrounded him, water pooling beneath their feet. One grabbed Marina, wrenching her from his arms. "No!" Adrian roared, struggling against two others holding him back. Her eyes locked with his one last time, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I love you," she mouthed, just before they dragged her into the crashing waves. And then, she was gone. Adrian searched the shoreline until his lungs burned and his legs ached. The Coast Guard combed the waters, their flashlights slicing through the night like desperate prayers, but found nothing. She was gone. Confusion swirled with rage, fear tangled with heartbreak. Every wave that crashed against the shore seemed to mock him. He had lost her. Standing in the salt-scented wind, Adrian's fists clenched until his knuckles went white. His voice cracked as he whispered into the darkness, "Please, wherever you are, come back to me." That night, for the first time in years, Adrian wept like a child. Days bled into weeks, weeks into months. The world moved on, but he did not. Vanessa's father, furious over the scandal, severed every business tie with the Cole family and withdrew his investments. The company stumbled, but Adrian threw himself into work like a drowning man clinging to driftwood. Meanwhile, the truth about Vanessa, her addictions, her cruelty, leaked into the press. The public turned on her. Adrian's parents, shaken, thanked heaven the engagement had ended. Still, none of it mattered to Adrian. Not the company's recovery, not the public praise for his business genius. All that haunted him was the image of a fragile, beautiful woman standing in the rain the night they first met, Marina. He dreamed of her often, her eyes like deep waters, her laughter like waves breaking softly on the shore. And always he woke with a hollow ache in his chest. Then came that night. It was raining again. Not a light drizzle, but a storm, fierce, wild, like the one that had brought her into his life. Lightning split the sky. Thunder growled over the city. Adrian tossed in bed, restless. The storm's rhythm pulled him back to that memory, her shivering form, the way she had looked at him as if he were her only safe harbor. Unable to sleep, he slipped out of bed and padded into the kitchen for a glass of water. The house felt unusually still, the air heavy. That's when he heard it. Tap, 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 a knock at the door. At this hour? His body stiffened. He set down the glass. Every instinct told him something wasn't right. Slowly, cautiously, he walked to the door and turned the handle. The street outside was empty, slick with rain. No figure stood there, no car in sight. He stepped out, scanning the shadows. Nothing. But just as he was about to close the door, he saw it. A small basket on the doorstep. Rainwater glistened on its woven edges. Inside, wrapped in soft cloth, was a tiny cradle. And inside that cradle, Adrian's breath caught. It was a baby. Wide, dark eyes stared up at him, eyes so hauntingly familiar they froze his blood. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment how you felt about the story on the comments section. Please encourage us by liking and subscribing. Put on the notification so that you will be notified whenever we post a story. Thank you and remain blessed.